Hey, everybody. It's Dante King, author of Diagnosing Whiteness and Anti-Blackness, back with my good brother and very best friend, one of my best friends, Pastor Ben Boswell. How's it going, Ben?
It's good to see you, Dante. It's good to be here.
Always, always. So we are back, not for a long time, but for a very valuable time. We're going live to do what we call a show that we kind of made up on the fly called Unprecedented. So this is Unprecedented with Pastor Ben Boswell, Dante King. Okay. Today, we want to center just a few clips of things that are happening in our country right now. One, everyone's probably aware of I would say the Holocaust that's happening in Minneapolis right now. It really is akin to so many events that we've seen, both in recent history as well as kind of just the expansion or the expansive history of our country, the history of the United States and colonial America. So we will be contextualizing a few current events through a historical perspective and just kind of commenting on it for about 30 minutes. Anything you'd like to say, Ben, before I play the first clip?
Just that there's a debate going on as well around this on Facebook, Instagram, on social media about what is the historical precedent for this moment. And so we'll be able to get into some of that as well.
Absolutely. So the first video will feature a show that comes on YouTube called The Bulwark, and Tim Miller. He's going to be speaking about the ICE raids, the videos that are happening. So it's really a genocide that's occurring. So one of the things I want you to pay attention to, close attention to, is how he narrates this video and how he narrates what's happening, what's going on. And then after we watch a quick clip of it, we're going to discuss it, okay? And feel free to join in the chat. Feel free to comment in whatever ways that you like. All right, here we go.
Hey everybody, Tim Miller from the Bulwark here. There has been this flurry of videos being taken by local journalists and citizens on the streets in Minneapolis, and they've delivered us these just horrifying scenes of confrontations between ICE and CBP.
And you know what? Wait 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing it for a second, and I'm actually going to put us in a mode where we are kind of next to Tim, so that we can also be, watching it with you and reacting to it as we're viewing it. Okay, so here we go again. All right.
Agents and the people of Minneapolis, people are just trying to live their lives and do their jobs. Citizens, as we're about to see, Uber drivers, people trying to just get their DoorDash. And in addition to confrontations with protesters who are within their rights in a free country to document what agents of the state are doing. And these videos have piled up one after another, particularly since the Renee Good shooting. There is this is anecdotal evidence, I think, from those videos that things have intensified. There is actual reported evidence that more agents are being sent to Minneapolis, and that might be part of the reason that these things are escalating. I know for a fact here in New Orleans, both the local media and my friends who have employees have heard that essentially a lot of the ICE agents, CBP agents that were deployed here have been now redirected to Minnesota. So the result of this is more confrontation, more harassing of citizens. And let's just be honest, this is a powder keg. It's a powder keg that's going to lead to more terrible results. And I think that, it is pretty telling that after these thugs shot and killed a woman, if you took them at their word, and this really just was a tragedy where it was, things moved very quickly, and this agent thought that he was, that she was going to ram him, and thought that his life was at risk, and so he fired his weapon and killed her. You can imagine a different world where after that, the agents, federal government, would want to do everything they could to de-escalate, right? To say that we're going to try to de-escalate. We're focusing on, going after, the criminals in the city, et cetera, et cetera. They've not done that. They've done the opposite. They're menacing and harassing people, and we can now see the video evidence of all this. So I'm sure, like many of you, these videos are coming across on social media. It's hard to kind of separate what's real and what's new, from other types of stuff that people are putting into your social media feed. So I wanted to go through a couple of these with you and just react to the terrible images that we're seeing in Minneapolis. So first up here, this is just hours after Renee Good was killed by an ICE officer. Ahmed bin Hassan, who was an Uber driver, was at the Minneapolis airport when the Border Patrol agent knocked on his window. Let's take a look at what happened.
It says U.S. Border Patrol. This is not the border. What is the Canada border or the Mexico border?
But if you were from this country, you know I'm an immigration officer.
What do you mean if I'm from this country?
I can hear you don't have the same accent as me. That's why.
So you're going by accents now?
I want to know where you were born.
Is that accents? Have you heard the Israeli accent? Have you heard the European accent?
This is tough. This guy is just doing his job, and now we've got agents of the state demanding IDs and judging people based on their accent. I don't know. How that's supposed to work in a country of immigrants. I'm down here in New Orleans. Got a lot of people with them Southern accents. We got them Cajuns down here. Got the Creole, got the French, the new immigrants that are coming into this country. That's not what America is. I need to see your papers if I don't like your accent. Ahmed said that he knew when they came up that they were being targeted. That's the Uber yard. He told The Intercept. The majority of people that hustle from there.
Okay, let me just pause this and we can just start just with that one comment. Now I'm going to hand it over to you. That's not what America is.
Yes, it is. Why, Brother Tim? Open a history book, man. Crack a history book, because this is America. I mean,
let me see your papers. That's not what America is.
Judging people by their accent, an accent leading to violence, skin color leading to violence. I mean, this is the history. This is America.
It most certainly is. It absolutely is. I think what is so profound, and you just named it, I'm going to name it a different way, but is the ignorance that white people do not know their history, and therefore, and I write about this in my books, are living in a delusional state. And so even the way that he's framing it, in the clinical sense, it would be described as something that is akin to a cognitive distortion, or just an unreality. It's just not factual at all whatsoever. And so when I was thinking about this, I started just going through, immediately when I heard that, it brought me back to the 1680 Preventing Negro Insurrections Act of 1680. And I'm going to read this law. This is 1680 in the colony of Virginia. And this law says, whereas the frequent meeting of considerable numbers of Negro slaves under pretense of feasts and burials is judged of dangerous consequence. Let me spell this out for you. Because we feel that it has become very dangerous for Black people to gather in large numbers, whether they're having breakfast, lunch, or dinner, going to church together, or attending funerals, right? For prevention whereof for the future, be it enacted by the King's most excellent majesty, by and with the consent of the General Assembly, and it is hereby enacted by the authority aforesaid that from and after the publication of this law, it shall not be lawful for any Negro or other slave to carry or arm himself with any club, staff, gun, sword, or any other weapon of defense or offense, nor to go or depart from his master's ground without a certificate from his master, mistress, or overseer, and such permission not to be granted, but upon particular and necessary occasions. So, and every Negro or slave, so if any, not having the certificate, as aforesaid, shall be sent to the next constable, who is hereby enjoined and required to give the said Negro 20 lashes on his bare back, well laid on. Ben.
Yeah.
There's nothing unprecedented about this. When when a white person such as a Tim Miller or whomever asserts that this is not America, this is not who we've been, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's just gross negligence too, right? Like you said, open a book, read history, and it's also, you know, more anecdotally, this is why Black people look at you strangely when you monologue at parties. Because you didn't do your research, you know, and you're saying this is not the country, you know, this is not how law enforcement are supposed to behave. This is not, you know, what do you mean? Who are you talking to, and what are you talking about? And it's sort of like why, you know, it's why white people are really living in a completely different reality.
They have been. They have all white people have been living in a completely delusional reality because they have no lived experience with white supremacy violence being turned inward.
Right.
They have very little experience. Yes, we can talk about the white poor, the undereducated white people who, in many cases, have less fortunate circumstances than those that are entitled and or, you know, that have resources, etc. But it is still not the same. It is still not the same. We understand from a legal and a economic perspective, if you have worked with or in law enforcement, as I have, that most of the funding for law enforcement positions, be it at the officer level, the sergeant level, that funding goes to positions that are set up to police in Black and brown neighborhoods. Right. I would say 80 to 90% of that funding. So, you know, it's so important to understand how all of these dynamics are at play and what's happening here. White people don't have any lived experience for what's going on in the moment, and they don't know their history, so therefore they don't have context for what's happening. So I'm going to play a little bit more, or unless you can say, you want to say something?
Just quickly, I also just think somebody is going to say on this in the comments to us, well, isn't he doing something positive here, trying to educate his fellow, you know, his listeners, those who subscribe to his video podcasting community, whatever, and that there's something innocent about what he's doing. But the innocence constitutes the crime, because this is a person who could do the research and also has a platform. And this is back to the lack of responsibility and the lack of accountability white people have had for hundreds of years, that a person with a platform would not think that they have to go read a book, or that their well-intentioned effort, how many times have I heard that from a white person? Their well-intentioned effort, you know, can't possibly, you know, cause harm, right? Mm-hmm. Well, actually it is. Right now, you're telling people a lie, that this is not America. That's a lie. That lies are harmful.
Come on, Ben.
Obscuring the truth.
Absolutely, because what it does, unfortunately, you know, what he's doing, it may appear to be innocent to white people who, again, don't understand their history and what group they belong to and what that group has done historically to other people who are considered non-white. They may not understand that, but the groups that this type of violence, has been targeted toward, very much understand it. So within that framing, within that context, he's gaslighting Black and brown people entirely. You want to say something about that?
No, keep going. Let's end on that for a minute. Let people think on that.
Okay, so I'm gonna give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull up this next video, and or not next video. I'm gonna go back to the one that we were just watching. Here we go. We have one more for you too, by the way. All right.
Are men and women of the Somali immigrant population. So I want to play another video where Ahmed goes to tell the agent exactly what his real story is, instead of being judged by his accent.
A fucking engineer, graduated from Washington State University. $70,000 student loans. And I'm doing Uber. You know what that means? I'd rather make an honest day's living. I don't go harassing people at work, dude. What the hell is that? Bro, all of you guys need psychiatric checkups. This is not normal. Why do you go to people's workplaces to harass them?
Hell yeah. I love that dude. that other guy. Like, why are you an engineer? I don't know. Why are you in a fucking balaclava hassling people? What is this? Like what? You're in the Uber yard. You're obviously not going.
Can we just also name this? And this is what I also write about in my book. He says, this is not normal, right? This is psychotic. And so we have to understand the way that these institutions have been designed, the way that they've been leveraged historically into the present is against Black and brown people. Like, they are weapons. And so even the culture and the way that it's been designed psychologically, psychoculturally, psychopolitically, psycholegally, psychoeconomically, it's set up to do harm. And so within that, with that understanding, we have to understand that many of the things that have been normalized, and I would argue all of the things that have been normalized in this society, from law enforcement, from the enforcement of laws, how the laws are designed, who they target, all of our institutions are weapons against Black and brown people. And Dr. Bobby Wright, which I write about and reference in my book, The 400-Year Holocaust, as well as my current book, Diagnosing Whiteness, he frames this as psychopathic. He was a Black psychologist. And he says, in their relationship with the Black race, and I will also include some brown communities, whites are psychopaths. And so within that framing, and hearing this man say that and name it, this is crazy. That he just said, this is crazy. This is psychotic. Ben.
Well, and also, folks don't even really need the second analysis to see the psychopathy here, because we know that they are recruiting people with no backgrounds, no background checks.
Right.
There's no mental health background check. There is no physical health background check. We are pulling people out of white supremacist organizations, out of militia groups, out of the armed forces, out of police. So these are like police dropouts, military dropouts, militia guys looking to cause violence. And we're not doing any background check. We're not doing any mental health or health screening. And then we're not doing any training. And we're putting them on the streets with Black and brown people and some white folks. And they're just killing indiscriminately.
And they have an appetite to do violence. They have an appetite to kill. They especially have an appetite to do harm to Black and brown people.
And so the psychopathy was already present, right, in these folks because of their maybe being in the army or being in the police force or being in a militia group or being in a white supremacist group, and or being white, which is very similar to one of those groups, and then coming into this group with no background checks, no health screening, no training, and you're putting them on the street. What does that tell you about the system? The system wants the most unhealthy people that it possibly has in direct engagements with Black and brown people on the streets.
Absolutely.
The most unhealthy and the most dangerous people. And the other thing that's so sad and disgusting about it is those people are also expendable to those with money and power that are white, because white people hate white people.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pastor Ben. Pedro Mizzolini says, hey, Ben and Dante, good evening from South Africa. Good evening, Pedro.
Hi, Pedro. What's up?
You joined. But again, and so Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, in her work, if you go to her book, the ISIS papers, she's naming this as malignant narcissism and sociopathy, that these are sociopaths that have been unleashed. So I think it's important to use adequate language, the correct language, to define what it is we are witnessing and seeing in this moment. And to hear white people such as a Tim Miller, right, who I actually appreciate on some levels, because he is trying to do good from his level of understanding, his level of awareness, and there is a lot more room to do better. But what I will say is white people are, like Tim Miller, are discussing this in the ways that have been normalized for them, trying to make sense of it through a humanistic perspective. There's nothing human about this. So I'm gonna go back to the video. Here we go.
Going after any violent criminals. Why can we only just see the whites of your eyes like you're robbing a fucking bank? It gets much worse from there. I want to start with Ahmed because he bested those fucking goons. But I want to now turn to video I'm sure many of you seen from a gas station in Minnesota. And this is, and the behavior here on behalf of the agents is despicable. Let's watch. Watch this. This is unbelievable. Like you don't see regular police acting like this. This is not regular behavior. And you have the first ICE goon.
I can't
push the guy.
And we
I can't.
okay, so you don't see regular police acting like this. This is not regular behavior. I'm just restating everything he said. You don't see regular police acting like this. This is not regular behavior. Take it away, Ben.
Well, that looked just like a traffic stop in Charlotte on the west side. I don't know what is irregular about that. That's every police encounter in Black and brown communities across this country for the last 200 years or longer, which is part of why it's so hard for, I think, Tim, to recognize the similarities between what's going on and American history and the history of policing in this country.
Absolutely. And I'll even take it a little step further. You know, we don't care about Black people in this country. This is an anti-Black country. And I've studied how it cuts across not just the white community, but the Hispanic community, the Asian community, other minorities. 3 books for people to go out and read.
Mm-hmm.
Unmasking Racial Innocence by Tanya Katari Hernandez. She's a law professor. Racial Innocence, Unmasking Latino Anti-Black Bias. Mm-hmm. Asian Americans in an Anti-Black World, Dr. Claire Jean Kim. And then finally, my book, Diagnosing Whiteness and Anti-Blackness. And then Ben's book. You want to tell them?
Yeah, I have a book called Confronting Whiteness that folks can pick up and read. It's what you'll find in all of these books that Dante is referencing here is the history of policing and the history of different racialized groups in America's triangulated relationship to anti-Black violence.
Absolutely. And so when these when these types of very violent, dangerous, murderous scenarios and experiences were happening to Breonna Taylor, to Sandra Bland, to Michael Brown, nobody cared, nobody paid attention, and would most likely not even contextualize those incidents in the same way that Tim Miller is contextualizing what we're witnessing right now. Nobody cared. These people were innocently murdered.
Right.
Innocently murdered. Yes. And there are many more. There are many, many, many more examples, but because no one pays attention to what's happening in Black America for the most part, and when they do, they contextualize it as though the person has always or most likely done something wrong. And again, that type of hallucinatory projection to rationalize and justify violence, that has always gone on with right. Black people. And so the Bulwark, Tim Miller, people like him, they are gaslighting Black people. Which is why it's angering on some levels and also amusing. You have to listen and watch people like Tim and what they are saying as amusement.
Yeah. I think later, I don't know if you're going to play more of the video or not, but later he says this line that made me burst out laughing. And when you sent it to me, which is, he'll show another video, similar kind of thing, go down, and then he's going to say, "This is not the American tradition."
Okay, so I'm going to...
What? He's talking about a different country. He must be talking about a different country because this is the American tradition.
It absolutely is.
Watching it live.
But because, again, and I framed this in my forthcoming book, which will be out next month, actually. It's called The Psychopathy of Whiteness. I have developed a conceptual framework that espouses there are the 4 Ds. There's deflection, defensiveness, denial, and dissociation, right? Because white people have not had to be forced to look at themselves, to look at all of the violences that they have caused to indigenous people, that they have caused to African people of African descent, that they have caused to Mexicans, especially those that are of a darker hue, a darker skin tone. White people have never had to look in the mirror. They've never had. Donald Trump and the people that support him and the people that he's appointed in his administration were raised in white homes with white mothers and fathers, many of which were Christian, who signed on to, who ascribed or subscribed to these values that would produce people who suffer from narcissism, malignant narcissism at that, who have no moral core when it comes to people that don't think like them, act like them, believe like them, look like them. None at all whatsoever.
I just think it's, when you said dissociation, I just thought about how Christians, white Christians, European Christians are steeped in dissociation every time they worship a white savior. That in and of itself is one of the greatest acts of dissociation in history, because Jesus was not white. Every time so when you talk about being trained in dissociation, we're trained from a very young age to dissociate from reality, right? Even our worship practices, our church practices, our sacred traditions, our family rituals, our holiday practices, everything is a form of dissociation. Think about Thanksgiving, for Pete's sake. I mean, good Lord.
That's right. That's right. So I'm actually going to go to the next video because we got to jump off in a sec. We don't mean to stay on here all day, but we really could. We could stay on here for at least another hour. Yeah. But I want to get to this clip pretty quickly. Let me actually change our format so that we can see the ultimate Christian, the ultimate saint, Miss Christy Nome. So here we go. Ben, why are you shaking your head?
I'm already upset.
Here we go.
Madam Secretary, how many tankers are Coast Guard tracking that are loose, and are any of them out of the Caribbean that you're tracking worldwide?
I can't speak to the specifics of the operation, although we are watching the entire shadow fleet and how they're moving. And I'm very proud of our Coast Guard, how they've partnered with the Department of War to do unprecedented actions and bringing these flags under jurisdiction these ships under jurisdiction that in many instances aren't flagged, or they're affiliated with a country moving this unauthorized oil to avoid our sanction policy.
And Madam Secretary, can I follow up quickly? Perhaps when like the video that was posted this morning, do you watch any of those operations?
Absolutely,
Did you share them with the president today?
Yes, absolutely, we do. We haven't slept a lot lately between the Coast Guard operations, what they're doing in partnership with the Department of War in dealing with the shadow fleet, what we're also doing as far as operations with law enforcement across the country. The Department of Homeland Security is very busy.
Yes. Madam Secretary, perhaps to follow up, why are we seeing Americans being asked on the street to provide proof of citizenship in Minnesota? Is that targeted enforcement? And are you advising Americans to carry proof of citizenship?
In every situation, we're doing targeted enforcement. If we are on a target and doing an operation, there may be individuals surrounding that criminal that we may be asking who they are and why they're there and having them validate their identity. That's what we've always done. In asking people who they are so that we know who's in those surroundings. And if they are breaking our federal laws, we will detain them as well until we run that process.
Are you advising Americans to carry proof? Just to follow, are you advising Americans to carry proof of citizenship in the second half?
There needs to be an insurrection act.
Okay. So I want to say something, my good brother, okay? To Black Americans, to Latino Americans, Latina Americans, Hispanics, whatever you identify by American, to Asian Americans, particularly to Hispanic Americans, Latinx Americans, that community, and to Black Americans, carry on you your passport and birth certificate. A copy of your birth certificate, make sure you have your passport on you. Because again, This is akin to the Fugitive Slave Act. It is akin to the Act Preventing Negro Insurrections. We are now back to you carrying your papers to justify, regardless of whether you have committed a crime or you are accomplice to something that's going on, even if you are in an area in the vicinity. This is this is like infinitely broader and way well beyond stop and frisk.
Oh yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Ben.
Yeah, and let's list off the things that are common here that are not unprecedented to what we just heard. In fact, it's sad to say that in this moment, Kristi Noem, who is a horrible human being, was more honest than Tim from the podcast, because at least she just said, "Oh no, yeah, this is what we do. This is what we've always done, and this is what we will always do. We don't care if you're a citizen or not. If you are black or brown in America, you are potentially a non-citizen depending upon how we feel that day."
That's right. And black people, again, gonna say, wake up, right? I talk about this in my book. You've never been a citizen in this. How do you allow the people that once enslaved you, that gave you that title, to then quote unquote free you and then bestow some concept of an idea that they have about what it means to be a citizen in this country? It was never yours. It was never realized. Anything given to you by people who enslaved your ancestors, who committed violences, and who dehumanized your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents through what was called Jim Crow or segregation. We've never been citizens of this country. We are subjects here. We are here for entertainment. And I think it's so important for people to realize that none of this stuff has ever been static. It's never been concrete. We are understanding in this moment right now the volatility of all of these institutions that really just hinge on the mass agreement of white people. And when I talk about, for example, in the fellowship that I do, the period of what was right after what was called Reconstruction. And for those of you that have not read W.E.B. Du Bois's Black Reconstruction in America, go and read that book. Yeah. W.E. Du Bois, Black Reconstruction in America. It was written in the mid-1930s, okay? He details what began to happen to Black people. There's another book called Slavery by Another Name by Douglas Blackman, and there's also a documentary about it. They both detail what began to happen. Black people thought we got citizenship in 1868. We're about to have Black governors, Black legislators, Black judges, a Black president. And for a while, locally, they did have, Black judges and Black officials, politicians and legal officials, right? Black people could sit on juries. They were convicting white people. And guess what? The Supreme Court of the United States of America came and began to erode right after right after right after right after right. And things became not just akin to what they were during the antebellum South, during slavery, the enslavement period. On some levels, they became worse because they re-enslaved Black people and made them property of the state and then would rent them out. It was called peonage. Ben.
They had, there were some protections because of the status as property that were no longer afforded right afterwards. And that's when mass lynchings, destructions of entire towns, massacres in Tulsa, we could go on and on of all that occurred as those rights were eroded. And now we're in a similar nadir is what that was called from some scholars, a similar moment right now where rights are being eroded. The Supreme Court is taking things one by one. They already took affirmative action. They've tried to take voting rights. They're going to take more and more. It's going to keep happening. And it's time for a lot of folks to wake up. It's really important what you said. To me, I read an article recently written by a person of color about why this fight going on with immigrants was not a fight that Black people should care about. And in the argument actually said that during the civil rights movement, that the civil rights leaders were citizens, whereas these immigrants are not citizens. And your point is 100% right, Dante. No, they weren't. They were not citizens. They didn't have the right to vote. They didn't have the right to ride on a bus.
Right.
What right are
No.
you talking about? What do you mean by citizen? You know,
That's
the
right.
to be killed? Is that a right for a citizen? And so the parallels actually are very, very real between what was going on during segregation and what's going on now. You know,
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to go back to one of the things that you highlighted, which were the mass lynchings that took place across the country, not just in the South, but in the North, in Minnesota, Duluth, Minnesota, in California, Redding, California, Chico, I believe, was another place. These lynchings took place everywhere, right? But again, it was the result of rulings made by the Supreme Court of the United States, because Congress, the U.S. Congress passed laws that the Black masses, many across the Black community, thought were going to protect them from terrorism. There's the Force Act of 1870 that outlawed terrorist groups such as the Red Shirts, the KKK, to go and commit violences against Black people. That's 1870. 1871, the Ku Klux Klan Act. 2 laws set to protect Black people against domestic terrorism from white supremacist groups. And what did the Supreme Court do in 1876 with Cruikshank versus Cruikshank versus United States, or United States versus Cruikshank? They overturned the Force Act of 1870. What did they do 7 years later in a case called United States v. Harris? They overturned the Force Act of 1871. And Black people found themselves being lynched all across this country with no recourse through the courts at all whatsoever. So this idea that we have made progress, or we've been on this road to progress, it's all rooted in an unreality, and it's delusional. Last words, Ben.
I'll just say that I hope folks are getting the point from our series as we continue this work together, that when people say, oh, this is unprecedented, or this is not who we are, or this is not America, or police officers don't act like this, that those comments are not helpful. They are harmful. And we ask you to read a book, and we'll start with Dante's. You should start there.
We'll start with both of our books. So my book, again, is Diagnosing Whiteness and Anti-Blackness, White Psychopathology, Collective Psychosis, and Trauma in America. And Ben?
I wrote Confronting Whiteness.
Wonderful. We will see you next time.